So I remember as a kid, Starter was like everything, right? Because it's like that sports apparel brand to have, you know what I mean? And I remember I wanted a Starter hat so badly.
Starter was in my life before I even like really knew about brands and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We all had Starter snapback caps back in the day, you know, Starter jerseys. It was just, you know, a line where it was just, you know, it was the sports meets, you know, casual apparel kind of feel to it.
My older cousins and my godbrothers and stuff like that, they were b-boys and skaters when I was growing up. A lot of the influences that I had were based on like things that they were doing. So thinking about Starter as a kid, it wasn't necessarily so much about the athletics, it was more about like the hip hop influence. So my cousins had the overalls and the Jordans and that kind of stuff, and like the Starter cap was a staple in the whole, like in terms of the uniform of like the hip hop heads back then.
Starter to me, because growing up where we grew up, like not everybody could afford Starter at that time. And like I just remember all the coolest people that I knew, all the guys I looked up to, they were rocking Starter hats or Starter jackets.
My dad came home and he bought me a Montreal Expos like Starter cap, and that was like the highlight of my childhood. Like I'm not lying, like I'm actually serious. I wore that thing every day. They used to call me Expo in middle school.
When you're a young kid, like sports is like so big. Like growing up in the 90s, the huge icons we had in the 90s, like they're all rocking Starters.
And now guys rap about it now, like, you know, it's like it's a throwback thing. Like it was just a part of life pretty much.
I see Starter now as a legendary, iconic brand in the sports apparel industry, you know? I feel like it's done so much for sports, and it's legendary, you know? There's nothing more to say about it but legendary.
I feel like it's one of those things that regardless of like what age you are, like what time you grew up in, like you still know it, you know what I mean? It's not something that'll like fade.
I still consider it like one of those staple brands in terms of like the hip hop uniform. It still holds that same respect. Again, I never saw it as like an athletic, like I never looked at it like what were they doing functionality wise. It's just more one of those things that like they were sort of representing, it almost felt like they were purposely representing something from like the hip hop aspect, you know? Like the fashion aspect more so than the athletic aspect.
It's legendary in a way where it's like, it's almost like the pioneer, like before I really had a conceived notion of all these different sports apparel brands. They're the kind of first to like brand it with the world and put that star logo on a lot of their stuff where it was recognizable, and you know you understood the quality of the brand because, you know, I mean, they're a powerhouse.